All right, everybody, welcome. Welcome to this exciting session today. We're going to allow some time for everybody to come in and join us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome.
Yes, glad you could take some time out of your day today to join us.
And also, if you can throw in the chat at some point which institution you're with and your role at the institution, that'd be very helpful. So we might be able to give some prime examples for you throughout today's session. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Good morning. Good afternoon. All right, perfect. Hello, everybody. My name is Christian Ollier. I'm the co-founder and head of innovation at the Study Abroad Association, and I'm super excited to be here with you today. We also have some exciting guests with us here today. Dominica Di Raviam. Did I pronounce that right, Dominica? Yeah, perfect. From Broward College. We have Catie Miller from Oklahoma State University. And we also have Scheppers from College of Central Florida. We have a very exciting session for you today. We're going to cover 3 pillars of success in education abroad, essentially how we can use virtual global education to achieve these 3 pillars. So enhancing the language classroom, strengthening pre-departure orientations for physical study abroad programs, and also expanding study abroad course content, and also how we can use this as an exciting way to promote study abroad and increase participation. We're going to allow everybody just another few seconds to come on in, and then we will get going. So just take your time.
Yep, and we've got people from all over. We've got Bentley University. Welcome. We've got a lot of folks here from Broward supporting Dominica. So some of her colleagues. We've got Georgia Southern, NJIT. We've got CEA Kappa, Mary Baldwin University, Villanova, Newman. We've got Germany. We've got Miami, Florida, Gaston College in North Carolina, UNC. Lots of folks from all over. Welcome.
Excellent. Welcome, everybody. All right, well, let's get going. Again, this is going to be recorded and we'll be able to share it with you after. And also, I just want to mention at the beginning, everybody here with us today, you're going to have a 1-month free trial to the actual 360 GLE, 360 Global Learning Experiences that we're introducing today. So you can test drive it for yourself. We'll send you a follow-up email afterwards so you can access all that. And we'll be happy to provide you sessions as well with your faculty so they can also explore it. So let's get going. Good. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Christian Ollier. I'm the co-founder, and I'm also the head of innovation at Study Abroad Association. Today, we're going to go through the 3 pillars of success in global education that we can achieve with virtual global education. Yeah. In addition to that, we're going to go over actual case studies from our guests today. The best people to share the success stories are the ones who are actually using them in the classroom. So I'm happy that they're here with us to share their stories so you can adopt these as well. A little introduction to SAA, Study Abroad Association. We specialize since 2009 in customized faculty-directed programming. So transformative educational experiences all around the world. We've taken groups and faculty to 6 different continents, 100% customized programming, extremely in-depth and academic focused. With the challenges that everything that COVID threw at us in 2020, we decided to use that as a challenge to really address something that we've seen in international education for a long time, which is lack of accessibility. We wanted to take that challenge and we wanted to address it in an innovative and exciting way. And we wanted to be able to create a new type of global education experience that would essentially make global education accessible to everyone. We started this with 3 primary goals. So the first goal is 1, how can we make an interactive, immersive global education accessible to everyone from the comfort of their couch and from their mobile phone? 2, how can we equip faculty and educators with up-to-date, exciting, interactive, and immersive global content featuring global experts from around the world that they can use as supplemental learning materials in the classroom to internationalize their curriculum? And 3, finally, how can we build a really exciting tool that we can use to further promote study abroad and actually have students go through these experiences and afterwards want to have these physical experiences for themselves? And that was the birth of the 360 GLE. 360 stands for the technology that we use. We use 360 cameras, 360 video, all encompassing, if you will, right? And then GLE is global learning experiences. We thought, how can we capture all the educational content that happens on traditional faculty-directed study abroads. And how can we capture that and put it into an exciting format so it can be lived time and time again, and also that students who are not able to go and have those experiences can access it. And that was really the birth of it. We were featured in the New York Times, finalist for goabroad.com, innovative technology. And I think most importantly is we've seen amazing success that we didn't even imagine would have happened with it because of the inspiration, excitement from the faculty using it and their own innovation and creativity. So that's really what led it, to become something of its own, and continues to grow and expand every day. It's 100% user and member generated and operated. So beyond that, there's courses that are involved with the modules. We also have live streaming programs that can go hand in hand with the 360 format. And then of course, hybrid programs, which are a mixture of the virtual and then actually going and having the physical experience. And we're going to hear a great success story about that today. So what is this format? How does this learning environment take place? I'm actually going to dive into the platform very quickly and show you, so that way you can actually have a visualization and understanding of this educational learning space and what it looks like. But essentially, it's interactive 360 photos that's layered with different multidisciplinary content, different types of media. So you have drone videos, you have time lapses, you have high definition photos, you have, of course, classic videography, you have embedded quizzes, you have we try to layer it as much as possible with different content. So it's constantly interactive and immersive. Also, this is all curated. So everything from, if it's in a foreign language, there's captioning, there's translation, and it's to the point, it's in depth, and then you're able to move on this journey. So I'll show you quickly the platform itself, and then let me do a new share here, and then we'll dive in with our guest here to share their personal experiences. So whenever you access the platform, again, you're going to have full access to this. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can see my, anybody? Can you not see my, can't see it yet? Okay.
We can see it.
Yeah, you can see it? Okay, cool.
Yep.
Perfect. So whenever you log into the platform, you have 4 different primary areas of study. This is constantly expanding based on user feedback. So we have a lot of faculty saying now, hey, we would love allied health, nursing focused, early childhood education. So we listen to everybody, and that goes into the next production cycle. But essentially every year, new global destinations and multidisciplinary content within each of those destinations. We start with 4 primary areas: business, global perspectives, humanities, and science, right? And this is unlimited access, unlimited users. So anybody at the institution with that .edu email can come in here and explore and access all the faculty, all the students, etc. I'm just going to scroll through quickly so you can see the variety. We have business in England, business in France, business in Greece, business in India, Switzerland. You have the global perspectives unit, which is very multidisciplinary. You can definitely find something to grab in there and bring unique perspectives into the classroom. Colombia is a brand new release. Ghana and Japan are going to be coming out in the next 2 months as well. Those are the 3 new additions for 2023. And then, of course, you have European destinations. You have Germany, Greece, Budapest, Hungary, India. I mentioned earlier, Japan as well. So every year, a lot of content in Italy as well. Every year, new global destinations, new multidisciplinary content, and a ton of great content in Costa Rica also, right? So to give you an idea of this format and what it's like when you actually go inside, we can come here, for example, to Costa Rica, Pacuare Reserve. As I come in, every landing page for the 360 GLE has the same layout. You have a cover photo, you have an introduction to the actual unit itself, topics, locations that we're visiting, and sites, right? So right now we're looking at Pacuare, Costa Rica. It's an amazing unit for sustainability or environmental conservation. We've actually had quite a few students who have now want to go and become marine biologists after going through these experiences. But I'm going to come into the actual unit itself. This is great because you can travel to so many locations around the world in a matter of a few clicks, and you can go to very extremely remote locations. So right now we're going to the actual Caribbean coast of Costa Rica right here. And we're actually engaging with local researchers who specialize in sea turtle conservation and their efforts there. So as I mentioned earlier, everything's in a 360 format, actually taken in the exact location it is in the world, right? So you can actually come in all the way to Street View here with a satellite map And you can see where you are on the Caribbean coast in Costa Rica, where these sea turtle nests and hatchings are actually taking place. And then also meet the actual researchers who live and breathe this on the daily basis, right? This is one of those plugins that I mentioned earlier. Every scene that you go to, there's different multimedia plugins. So you can explore all those on your own time. Again, you'll have full access to the platform to explore everything with captioning. And then you can just continue to move on this journey to find out a lot more about the project, what they do, the challenges, threats of climate change, how they're overcoming these success stories, even during times of COVID, right? And so this is essentially how the learning space is laid out and built. And then, of course, in addition to the actual platform itself, you have the modules and courses. Now you can adopt all these, you can use these, or you can use these as a blueprint for you to create something of your own. And I'm going to share some success stories later with you about that, of what institutions have done to actually generate a lot of tuition revenue, to build study abroad scholarships, to finance this entire program through credit bearing and non-credit bearing courses, as well as Global Scholars modules. But with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to our first faculty and guest today with us, Dominika Di Raviam from Broward College. Thank you, Dominika, for joining.
Thank you, Christian. Will you advance to the next slide, please?
Yes, excuse me, new share. And how about now? Are we good?
Great. Actually, you can go ahead from that as well.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks. So hello, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm Dominika Di Raviam. I'm an instructional designer, adjunct faculty, and a faculty-led study abroad facilitator at Broward College in South Florida. Our institution has a student body of about 56,000 students, and who are supported through about 4,000 full-time and part-time faculty and staff, more or less. Our learning takes place not only on the physical campuses within Broward County, but also at our international centers worldwide and in an ever-flourishing online campus. So as you may imagine, our learners range from first-time college students, dual enrolled students, adult learners, and career professionals who enroll in 2- and 4-year degree programs. And we also have specialized certificate programs across 8 career-related pathways. In addition, BC provides non-degree training, workforce readiness, and continuing education curricula. In my roles here at the college, I've explored and utilized 360 GLE, and this slide is enumerating various ways that 360 GLE assists us at Broward College in achieving our mission of transforming students' lives and enriching our diverse community of learners. So I'm going to devote my segment of the presentation to narrating a specific assignment that I designed and that I use with my Italian 1 and 2 students. And the slide deck is going to be shared out later. So if you have any questions about information that I've included, but that I don't necessarily get a chance to speak on, I'm happy to continue that conversation via email later on. And before I elaborate on my personal classroom experience, it is worth briefly mentioning examples of the course development and design process in which I have assisted faculty in incorporating the 360 GLE. So I've worked with some subject matter experts in business courses and selecting scenarios that demonstrate cultural practices that are relevant to international business affairs. With the science faculty, I've assisted in curating 360 GLE experiences that virtually transport the students into different biomes to explore specific flora and fauna, kind of like what Christian has shown us. And in humanities courses, I have seen developers build modules incorporating scenarios that are related to Italian Renaissance, and then they allow the students to continue along the same historical timeline, but to deviate geographically and visit other places. And in this exploration, they're analyzing the contributions that Italy made in the historical narrative of other countries, and also the reverse. So, and I'll also share that I have personally used the 360 GLE in promoting study abroad to Italy for upcoming sessions. Will you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. The personal in-class experience that I want to illustrate today is one that I've adapted, as I said, to my Italian 1 and 2 classes since we began using the 360 GLE during pandemic remote learning times. So the catalyst was that many of my students in my Italian 2 class had previously participated in the summer study abroad with me in Italy. And as the pandemic unfolded, they saw their new Italian friends being hit first and being hit hardest. So as soon as Christian notified me of this new resource that they were developing, I adapted it to my lesson plan, not only because it aligned with our institutional competencies that I've listed here, but also because students were longing for that connection to the outside. And this provided a sense of camaraderie, both among their classmates that were now in the virtual space, and also with the narrators of the scenarios that we'll see, who, aside from being super dynamic and engaging personalities, were actually our guides that we interacted with and built relationships with while we were in Italy. And I selected these destinations that you see here on this slide because I wanted to provide geographical diversity within Italy, as well as to provide interdisciplinary diversity to students who would select their preferred starting point for their first small group. Can you please go on to the next slide? Thank you. And this slide outlines how the assignment that I first visualized for the remote or synchronous online learning environment can be adapted to any teaching modality. And I've kind of done that over the course of the past several semesters. And I always use this assignment as a starting point, and then we branch out. So the upcoming slides will illustrate the highlights from each part of the activity. What we're seeing here are the component parts that are pretty consistent. So the 360 GLE experience began with a pre-class activity in which students create their accounts. They go through the tutorial, and then they read the overviews of the locations that I have selected, and I just kind of give them the URLs to go to once they've created their account. Then the class members pick their desired destination to start off. And this can happen via an online poll or via a list on the whiteboard when they come into the classroom space. Students get into their small group, and then they're initially guided through a visit of the city that they've selected. There are specific required slides with questions to guide them and to answer. And then they also have time to roam around and explore. And you saw all of the plugins that Christian was pointing out. Those are incorporated in all of the scenarios. So then the group members are redistributed, and the members share the information that they gleaned on the city that they visited, and they show their new group members some of the highlights. And then finally, we get back together as a whole group for a closing Kahoot. And the exercise really generates a lot of conversation, a lot of interest, and a lot of excitement. And it leads to continued involvement with the GLE 360 outside of class, and potentially for travel in real life. And the additional activities that we add on afterwards, some of them are for extra credit and some of them are actually assigned, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Will you please go ahead to the next slide? Thank you. And this is a sample of the pre-class activity. Typically, this takes place in the online environment, and the students will verify that they've created their account and that they've selected their preferred destination. Either I'll request them to submit a screenshot or something of that sort. And of course, I'm available to them if they have difficulty, but it's a very straightforward activity to create your account. And since Christian already took us through this is just a screenshot to show you kind of the information that they're exposed to before we even come into class. Next slide. So in class, the small groups are established, or the breakout rooms if you're doing this in a Zoom environment. And I share a collaborative group document with each of the groups. And sometimes the students have selected their destination based on a city that interests them, a bucket list place, if you will. But other times they've chosen it because of their interest in the social or cultural topic that is associated with it. And I make sure for my purposes to have questions that are in lingua, as well as critical thinking questions in English. And I guide them to which slides they're required to view, but then I allow them time to kind of expand and broaden their experience, broaden their horizons within the allotted time frame, and visit places that are of personal interest. And this segment usually lasts about 30 or 40 minutes of class time. And then I also invariably ask them at the bottom to please share the pros and cons of using the 360 GLE tool. And it helps me to revise future activities. And I also share this information with Christian's team. And I have to say that they have always really been accommodating in considering my students' feedback, to be very honest, and my feedback as well. Next slide. So thank you. So here you can see the students in action in the online synchronous execution of the 360 GLE visits. Here they're discussing with their small groups and working through the scenes. There's a mix of Italian and English language that's always going on because they're interpreting what the guides and the locals are saying. The video captions, which are in Italian in this case, make the content, well, or actually you can choose Italian or English, I should say, but makes the content much more accessible, and it helps students to formulate their answers to the questions that are in Italian. And whether I pop into the breakout rooms in Zoom or I roam around the classroom and outside the classroom space, because it's kind of neat because the students will take their laptops and go to other places, outside in the hallway or downstairs in a common area. Since the groups like to spread out to share their audio without distracting everybody in the face-to-face environment, it's just always very cool to see how engaged the students are in conversation, in thinking, and in bringing it to the next level. So sometimes they're sharing the knowledge that they've learned in other courses regarding like environmental issues, or they're commenting on the similarities and differences that they note between these scenes and their own experiences. Or other times, and I noticed this with Venice in particular, that they're expressing their surprise at how different these places are from what they had imagined or what they had read about prior. As I said, there are 2 small group opportunities, and after the first assigned group travels through their area, the first area that they chose, I create new groups with representatives of each of the original groups, and they share highlights, and they take their classmates to see the salient and most impressive areas that they visited during their personal experience, and they educate one another, and they'll watch little video clips together that they thought were most interesting, for example. And just a brief mention that they can also do this with Google Cardboard. You can do it on a laptop or on a computer, but you can also do it with in a virtual reality. Can you please advance? So the next step is that we reconvene and we participate in a Kahoot as a wrap up. And I've designed the Kahoot with some general knowledge questions that every participant should be able to, what gleaned during their virtual travels. And then there's opportunities to expand these activities. So for extra credit, I would usually invite the students to engage in another travel experience and share their impressions in an online discussion post. And there's just such a wide variety of places to visit for me as an Italian instructor, and they can even travel outside of Italy and do comparisons and contrasts if they'd like. But my goal is that the students achieve and maintain a comfort level with the 360 GLE tool, because I like to use it throughout the semester, and particularly I like to rely on it as a resource for their final project, wherein they curate their own trip through Italy and they narrate their excursion in basic Italian, because they're able to use, present tense verbs and name places and name things that they see or do. So if anybody in the group is an instructor that has reservations about the time commitment that's required to incorporate 360 GLE into your curriculum, I can assure you that it is really minimal. I mean, I dedicated 1 class meeting to this particular exercise in my blended course, for example, but the outcomes align with my syllabus, and straying from the textbook for an authentic experience in Italy with Italian locals and absorbing Italian culture and Italian language is truly invaluable. It's better than listening to me babble in Italian, if you will. So furthermore, when the students see the interdisciplinary applications of these scenes and these scenarios, it makes their language learning more relevant, and it inspires connections between their current academic trajectory and their future career aspirations. So I really feel that it is a very valuable asset. And that's all I'll say for now, but I thank you for allowing me to share my personal success with 360 GLE with you guys today. And if you have any questions, I'm here throughout the webinar, and even afterwards we can connect. Thank you.
Dominica, thank you so much. And I love all the success stories that you've had so far. This is very exciting. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
All right, next up, we're going to invite Catie Miller from Oklahoma State University. She's the Global Programs Coordinator for the Center for Global Learning. Hey, Catie.
Hey, well, thank you so much for having me. Like Christian said, my name is Catie Miller, and I work at Oklahoma State University. I am the Global Programs Coordinator in the Center for Global Learning, which is our centralized study abroad office on campus. And you can go to the next slide if you could, please. So my hope is to share with you all our journey of exploring the benefits and impacts of utilizing the 360 GLE platform to prepare for a faculty-led course to France last summer, so during the summer of 2022. You can go to the next slide. So first, I kind of want to orient you all to Oklahoma State University and a program at the university we call RISE. OSU is a public land-grant research university located in Stillwater, Oklahoma. We're home to more than 35,000 students across 5 campuses, and our main campus is in Stillwater. And in Stillwater, we enroll nearly 24,000 students. Within the university, we have a program called RISE, which is the Retention Initiative for Student Excellence, which is a program designated to help students from underrepresented groups succeed in their academic and personal goals while in college. So now that I've briefly introduced you to OSU and RISE, we're going to look at how we ran a faculty-led course to France with a cohort of RISE students while utilizing the 360 GLE platform. Next slide. Thank you. So let's talk about faculty-led courses, and more specifically, faculty-led courses at OSU. Here, we're talking about the courses that are led by faculty members and sometimes OSU staff members, and allow students to study abroad for shorter periods of time. So, winter intersession, summer break, spring break, so 1 to 2 weeks, while still earning that academic credit. And during this 2-week faculty-led study abroad course, our RISE group went to Limoges and Paris, France, where students had the opportunity to visit with a range of cultural and historical sites, including museums, landmarks, cultural centers, interact with local students and experts. They also participated in academic and experiential learning activities such as lectures, discussions, and they went into laboratories and did some hands-on activities there during their visits. The RISE program employs a cohort model, which it provided really a lot of benefits for our students. Some of these benefits included a shared experience going abroad with their other RISE cohort members, the easier transition into a new environment, shared academic goals. It also allowed students to share in the experience of immersing themselves in a new culture together, both pre-departure and while abroad, and create a sense of community and support. And overall, it just made their experience more enjoyable and meaningful. One of the really great highlights of this course was our office's partnership with the University of Limoges in France and the Division of Institutional Diversity back here at OSU. We also were able to secure funds through a grant called the Transatlantic Mobility Program, which is run through the French Embassy. And this funding allowed us to collaborate with the Study Abroad Association to create custom 360 GLE content, highlighting the University of Limoges and surrounding course areas. Next slide, please. So as we look at the demographics of the RISE students who participated in our course, we can see that they represented a diverse range of backgrounds in academic disciplines. We had biology, chemistry, engineering, sociology. Our students came from all different various fields of study. But what's more impressive is the diversity within our student group. You can see that we had students from different ethnicities, genders, and many first-generation college students. We were able to pull a couple quotes from kind of their post-course assessments, and one of our RISE students shared their greatest challenge while studying abroad, which was, as a first-generation college student, I didn't think it was this affordable to study abroad, but now I know that it is with the right resources and help from advisors. Another student shared that their biggest obstacle was getting on a plane for the first time. Despite these challenges, our students were able to overcome them with support from dedicated staff members at OSU, the University of Limoges, as well as funding through the French government. A big piece was also the students had access pre-departure and while abroad, and even returned to various resources like the 360 GLE platform, which provided them with invaluable information and support throughout the course. Like I mentioned, they were having access to it prior to departure, while they were abroad, and when they came back to reflect on the course. It was a valuable tool, and it provided them a wealth of information about going to France and helped them prepare. So next slide, please. As any part of a faculty-led course at OSU, pre-departure orientation was a crucial component in preparing the students for their study abroad experience in Limoges and then Paris as well. Prior to departure, students were given the opportunity to virtually immerse themselves in the culture and society of these locations through a series of custom curated online modules in the 360 GLE platform. So these modules, like Christian has said, included short video lectures, interviews with locals and university staff, including staff that they were going to meet and interact with on site, as well as various bits of embedded text on local culture and assessment pieces. They were designed to help students practice things like empirical observation skills, and they were introduced to the students during a class meeting prior to departure, after which they had that entire time during the pre-orientation, pre-departure phase for them to complete all of the modules at their own pace prior to leaving for France. For us, pre-departure preparation was a really important part of the study abroad process. You know, it helps the students understand what to expect and how to prepare for their time abroad. This type of preparation can be especially helpful for students who have never been abroad before. It can help them feel more confident and comfortable about their upcoming travels into France in this case. For our students, specifically the RISE cohort, this type of research using the 360 GLE platform was particularly helpful, as many of them have never been out of the country yet, or even Oklahoma. By learning about the French culture and customs ahead of time through the platform, the 360 GLE, they were better able to adapt to their new surroundings and make the most of their time abroad. For example, part of the 360 GLE modules involved learning about the actual campus at the University of Limoges. So when they were on site, they felt really comfortable and confident navigating campus, having seen the different buildings that they might have been visiting or passing by as they were headed to the dorms where they were staying. So overall for us, the pre-departure orientation was an essential component in preparing our RISE students for their study abroad experience and help them feel way more confident and excited about their travels. One of the students noted about just kind of the uncertainty of traveling abroad. They said, if you are questioning if you want to study abroad or not, just go. Don't let the fear of the unknown stop you from experiencing something new. It doesn't matter how short or how long the trip you're considering, something amazing will happen and you will be changed for the better. Next slide, please. You know, we had a lot of probably anticipated success with pre-departure orientation and even more utilizing the 360 GLE, but using the platform had a lot of unexpected impacts on the students, their support systems, as well as on our course leaders. You know, for example, throughout their time in France, students would often reference back to the 360 GLE content while on site, you know, recognizing locations, remembering historical or cultural details that they had learned from the platform, which allowed the course leaders to have in the moment spontaneous experiential learning opportunities to reflect on what they had learned before and then really implementing it while in France. You know, another example is just for our course leaders. One of our faculty members had never been to Limoges, and he was able to gain both perspective and knowledge about the location before even setting foot into Limoges. So he was able to better prepare himself so he could better be a course leader for his students. And then probably our biggest and maybe most unexpected impact of the 360 GLE platform was how it can be beneficial for student support systems. So we're talking about the parents, the siblings, friends, or maybe their chosen families. But by providing that information in the platform about France and its culture, students were able to, with those in their community, feel more prepared and confident about the course. They were able to be involved in the study abroad experience pre-departure, almost as if they were there without physically being in France with the students. The platform provided you know, ways for families to understand and support the students' journey, even if they were not physically accompanying them on the course. They had the lived experience of maybe going through the platform with them during different assignments and seeing where they were going, experiencing what they were going to experience just virtually. One of our students reflected on some of the challenges they faced and said, you know, just being away from literally everything familiar was a challenge. I've never really left Oklahoma, and if I did, I had my family with me, so I had never been pushed to see who I was apart from my normal. It was challenging, but in the best way possible. I can't believe the amount of growth I got in 14 days. You know, as a result of the involvement in the pre-departure activities, we found that families or their support systems were present at the airport to drop them off. You know, some or most all of someone from the families accompanied the students to the airport to leave for France, but even more we found were there to greet the entire group as a whole, excited to see their students return from France. And I think it's this level of engagement and support. It was just truly remarkable and demonstrated the power of the 360 GLE platform in bringing a student's community closer to their study abroad experience. And overall, while we believed that, like the 360 GLE platform really was designed for student use, we very quickly through this course learned that those within their family, friend, or, community group could also be involved in supporting the students' participation and staying connected with them during their study abroad experience. Next slide, please. And one of the greatest key takeaways and lessons we did learn from this experience was the need for two different versions of the 360 GLE platform. So one for a faculty-led course and one for maybe a semester or year-long study abroad experience, a student going to the University of Limoges. This would allow for a more customized and targeted approach to pre-departure preparation, ensuring that that student has access to all the resources, all the information, meet all the people virtually that they're going to need to be successful while studying abroad versus, an entire overview of the campus for someone who's going to be there for a semester, a year, versus a faculty-led student who might need to know key locations, key contact people, and an overview of the city. I think in conclusion, the RISE Study Abroad course has been a really valuable learning experience for all of us involved with Study Abroad Association, University of Limoges, departments on campus at OSU, and the students as a whole. As we start to prepare for summer 2023, we're going to take these lessons learned of how we were able to incorporate the platform in our pre-departure and really build upon it for this new incoming cohort of RISE students. I thank you all for listening. I think we're going to have time for questions at the end, and I'd love to chat more about kind of how we were able to implement this and found some success with the platform.
Hey, Catie, thank you so much for your efforts with this. You did an incredible job at Oklahoma State, and we're so excited. You were the first ones to actually do a full-on hybrid program, and you knocked it out of the park. It's beautiful. So we look forward to future collaborations and developing that more with you. Thank you again for joining us. Next up, we're going to invite Professor Jean Scheppers from College of Central Florida to join us. Hello, Jean. Buenos dias.
Good buenos dias. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. I have a little bit of a cold, so I'm doing my best to speak clearly. I am a Spanish professor at the College of Central Florida, and our college covers the area of 3 large rural counties in Florida, in Central Florida, and a lot of our students don't have the money or the wherewithal to travel abroad. So I've been working especially with students to figure out how can we bring what you gain from study abroad to the students through the GLE 360. So we talked collaboratively, myself and a group of students, about what we wanted to achieve and what it is that study abroad gives us. So our goal was to build cultural competence, and students define that as developing an awareness of yourself and your own cultural ideas, recognizing the differences between your own culture and other cultures and the value of those differences, and continuing to acquire knowledge and grow and be inspired by what you learn. If you'll move to the next slide, please. Thank you. To implement the 360 GLE, we set up a series of discussion questions. We had already been using a series of discussion questions to try to develop some sense of cultural awareness. We've been watching Spanish language television series and having discussions about the things that we saw. But what's better about the 360 GLE is that students can actually explore where they're interested, follow the city, the idea, the historical information, the social information that interests them most, and use that to build cultural understanding. So with that, next slide, please. Thank you. We decided that this is a very complex journey, that not everybody's going to have the same journey, that everybody's going to be interested in things that are different, learn things that are different, but that we had 3 things in common: that we can all grow personally, we can grow in our ability to interact with each other, and we can grow in our ability to understand global issues and interact on an international global level. Next slide, please. So we begin this journey by taking a look at ourselves, who we are, how we connect with others, and how we grow. I ask students in the discussion questions to first describe some of their own characteristics, things that they value, things that are important to them. This, we haven't actually entered into the GLE 360 yet, but they're looking at themselves and their family members and what they value, how they connect with other people, and how they find comfort in the things that are familiar to them. I also ask them, once they identify what their beliefs are, how those people in their close circle are different, because not everybody's the same. Even if you come from a large family, your brothers and your sisters do things differently, think differently. We're all unique. And we focus our discussion then on how to value each person in their own unique way. And this is our beginning of moving toward cultural understanding. Next slide, please. Thank you. In our next discussion question, we begin exploring in the 360 GLE, but we're still kind of talking about how we make connections to people. So we're looking just to talk about when you meet somebody new, when you see something new in your journey, when you run into an unfamiliar situation, what do you find about it that helps you connect? And in general, similarities help you connect. If you see someone that has something, a similar way of looking at life, a similar sense of humor, even if it's in another country, when you see something that you can connect to, you begin to be able to accept that the differences are okay too. So after we find some similarities within our families, similarities within our friends groups, similarities with what we're seeing in 360 GLE, we then talk about what can you learn from what's different. And in the pictures you see there, sometimes it's something as simple as we love dogs. I can be from one country, you can be from another country, but this is the pet we love, and you can unite around that. But understanding what people do differently can lead to very beneficial and very culturally, we've always been sharing things. I know that today cultural appropriation is something that seems taboo, but all across time and all across history, we've adopted things from other cultures. A simple cup of coffee from Turkey, for example, is something that is worldwide now. Next slide, please. As we really begin to focus on our global journey, in our travels, as we go through these virtual environments, we go to the city of Cartagena looking for connections. There are 13 different scenes here that address a wide variety of topics. There are some cultural topics, some locations. Some locations come with some hard to read about history for some of our students. We have a significant African American population, we have a significant Hispanic population, and we have counties that have a pretty severe cultural divide, where we have a lot of wealthy retirees from the north who have a lot of money and a lot of fancy things, and we have a lot of poor minorities in our county that really struggle. We have 12,000 homeless children this year in our county alone, in Marion County. We have people who face discrimination and face a lot of difficulties here in Florida. And sometimes finding that in other countries people have suffered through the same things helps them make a connection. And seeing how people fought against slavery, fought to free slaves, fought for the right for slaves to be equal and free, even from the very beginning, is encouraging to them and encouraging for all of us as they share that story and share their connections. If you could move to the next slide, please. Our second trip is to Santa Marta, where we all seek out something new and different. And we share what new thing we learned and why we find it interesting. And after each student shares their discovery, we talk about the parallels and how we can use what we learn to enrich our lives. And sometimes it's a new culture and a new way of doing things that students find. but they see family connections between the members of the tribe, or they see a kind of craftsmanship that maybe their family makes. These are backpacks from the native tribe in this area. There might be a student whose family makes custom sewn products that they sell in a shop in town. And those kinds of connections help people see that no matter how different they look, no matter how different they dress, no matter how different they speak, we still have things in common that allow us to make connections. As we move forward, next slide, please. We travel to our final city here of Medellin, and we're looking for inspiration. I personally, and the group of students that helped me design this program, personally went through each of these sites to try to decide how can we best use each site. And the students agreed that the one that provided the most inspiration for how we could move forward in the future was this particular journey. And I agree as well. The cable car story, for example, of how cable cars, the project was first, let's see, they came up with the project through a collaboration of a variety of different people, some of the poorer people who lived in the upper areas outside of the city, city leaders, people from all different walks of life met together and talked about how they could improve their city. And it was that collaborative effort that led to something that serves all populations, everybody in the city, and has made the city far more successful in general. One of the students was particularly impressed that you can get a ticket to the cable car by bringing in recyclables. And they thought that was pretty inspiring. And so we use stories like that to ask the question, what do you connect to? Not because you want to do exactly the same project, but what do you connect to because you also want to do something for your community? How can you gather together? What can you do to inspire your community to be better? Or you and your classmates to be better? Or you and your family to do something that's better, to make a better world? Go ahead and go to the next slide. In general, we've come to the conclusion that what we learn from this process in our conversations with each other, in our conversations in class, hopefully as we move forward with this, is that we can learn to be strong enough to be ourselves, meaning we can learn and appreciate new things without having to feel like we have to do those things, but that we can also be brave enough to learn from what's new and grow from that in our own way. We don't have to take on someone else's culture. When we go to that culture, we actually learn to be our own better selves. And in a way, that's been our goal, right? To learn to interact interculturally, to learn to accept the differences and grow from those differences, and to be brave enough to be yourself in that environment. Part of the process that we're using, which is based in discussion questions, is a kind of grading that comes, or that is based on understanding. Next slide, please. And this is our last slide. I try really hard to figure out what's most important. And in this process, the idea of traveling internationally, virtually, or even in person, is really about learning to live in the world, to see yourself, to grow to be your best self, to see others and understand that people who are different aren't necessarily more or less, they're simply different, and we can learn from each other and grow in the process. So the grading process is about teaching understanding. There's no grading for correct grammar. You don't have to say things brilliantly. You just have to talk to each other. So points are earned by providing details, being original, not copying what other students say, interacting with others in back and forth conversations and discussions, interacting with more than one person. I know if you've done discussion questions before, sometimes it's hard to get students to interact with each other. But this point system works really well. There are also points for being understanding and caring when someone expresses something that has been difficult for them. And there's only one way to lose points, and that is to be disrespectful to other people, or to say something that's absolutely meaningless, like I'm exactly like them because they do exactly the same things that I do. Not an uncommon phrase in student discussion questions. So student response to this has been tremendous. There is a kind of sense of unity that grows out of discussions like this. The students have been absolutely thrilled with the media, the ability to explore. One student said, "This was probably the best thing we did in class because we didn't actually do something that feels like a class. We got to explore, we got to challenge ourselves, and we got to share that information as if we'd been there. We got to share that information with other students." So for us, this has been, for students who don't have the opportunity to travel very often, a really great experience. Very positive, and all of them have expressed that they really have learned to value other people without feeling scared that they are going to lose themselves. So thank you, Christian, for providing this opportunity for us. It's been wonderful.
Hey, Jane, thank you so much for joining, and thank you for being the first to really dive into the Colombia content. We look forward to working with you more on that to build out some Spanish-focused modules, hopefully. So thank you again, Jane, for being here today. Gracias.
You know,
And just quickly, we want to leave plenty of time for Q&A. I just wanted to share a couple success stories. This will be less than a minute, just so you kind of plant some seeds in your mind of like, oh, that's an idea that we could adopt, or, oh, we could do that. So University of South Florida, they actually built an entire class of virtual study abroad program, if you will. And they were the first ones to do it. We worked with them to develop an entire Italy experience from the north to the south, focused on climate change and human impact on the environment. This was great because it allowed all students the opportunity to take the special topics course, right? South Piedmont Community College, Professor Kira Ferris, Dr. Kira Ferris over there. Each semester she requests different custom tours be put together. So what we do is we take all of our content, and she says, hey, can you put this scene with this scene, this one with this one, to have a theme for a particular program, right? And we build that out for her. So each week the students will go on a different global mission with the same theme. Kansai University, Japan, they were amazing to collaborate with. They actually sponsored a large part of the Kansai region Japan content that's going to be coming out here in the next month around National Study Abroad Day. And that's heavily focused on humanities, global perspectives, culture in general. And it's also a university experience similar to University of Limoges, like Oklahoma State did. So they're using that with their COIL programs as well. So you can use this resource in the class, also with your COIL or virtual exchange classes, as a conversation starter, as a material for students to explore from all different parts of the world. Hillsborough Community College, they use it with their honors classes. Clayton State, they're actually going to be the first student group doing a user-generated 360 GLE. And this is very exciting, especially for those faculties that like to take groups abroad. We can equip you with the knowledge and the know-how of how to produce your own 360 GLE. And that's a user-generated one. So their film students are going to South Korea to do that, but they're also using it with their alumni. So alumni relations, they wanted to find a way to connect with their alumni, also to encourage more alumni giving, right? And then finally, the NC Scholars of Global Distinction. So we were actually one of the pre-made modules has been approved and certified by Worldview, UNC Chapel Hill Worldview program, their North Carolina Scholars of Global Distinction, as a online experience, virtual global education experience that can satisfy the requirements for the students to achieve that stamp on their transcript. So really options are truly, truly endless. We'd love to share those and those success stories with you of how you can create a special topics course, credit bearing or non-credit bearing, how you can make it available through continuing education for your community members to help fund these experiences, as well as study abroad scholarships. We'll share a lot of that with you in other meetings from this one. We'd like to open it up now to Q&A. We answered quite a few questions already in the chat, but please feel free to unmute yourself, to throw questions in the chat for our guests, for myself, for anyone. And thank you again, everybody, for being here today.
yeah, feel free to type your questions in the chat or unmute yourself. Let us know.
While we,
And
yeah, go
I was
ahead,
gonna
PJ.
say, if you want to move to the last slide too, just as we wait for questions,
Yeah.
that way everyone has the contact information too, from if you want to write that down. So you do have a question here.
Perfect. Sorry, I missed it. PJ, which is it at the bottom?
Yeah, it's in the chat. It says, I like that you integrate student testimonials. If GLE has options to explore cultural scenes in different countries, I can imagine a 360-degree virtual immersion in a cultural event. LGBTQ pride is big in Madrid, Spain. So having an opportunity to explore a virtual parade and interact with the locals could be fun. Gen Z is a lot more open and vocal about sexuality. So seeing these issues as relevant in other countries can help Gen Z students feel more accepted. Yeah, absolutely, Rachel. That's a great one.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%. Indeed, Rachel, these examples are exactly what we love, because when educators and passionate faculty share ideas with us, that allows us to say, okay, we have the on-ground context to bring that to life. So let's do that. Let's add that. We don't have enough content on that subject matter. So let's dive in. So thank you for that. And we'll definitely put that at the top of the list.
Definitely. We also have a question about what languages could utilize GLE in their language classes based on the current portfolio.
Hey, great question, Heidi. So currently Spanish language for sure. Colombia is our first bilingual 360 GLE, where we film the units both in English and in Spanish. So you can have audio as well as captioning all in Spanish for that whole experience. Costa Rica as well has Spanish content. France, our unit in Lyon is very in-depth. It's 95% in French. Italian language for sure, all throughout Italy. And I believe that is it currently for foreign languages. But again, every year expanding, right? So, you know, Korea, we're going there this summer. This could be a new one where we implement Portuguese, right? Any common languages, Mandarin, that are used in the classrooms, let's bring them to life. So yeah, we hope to expand on that, and we will.
If I could make a comment.
Yes.
As a professor whose college has worked with you, Study Abroad Association has been extraordinarily helpful in customizing trips to meet our needs. We've got a trip going to Ireland this summer, and we're basically a nursing college. And so the focus is all on nursing. The students are going to hospitals. So what if you're listening to this seminar and you have an idea that hasn't been covered, Study Abroad Association is more than willing to work with you to find something or create something that will help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Jean. That's the truth. Any other questions, friends? Well, we have just 2 minutes here left. And I'm going to be sharing again. I'm going to be sharing with all of you instructions so you can access your free trial. And then in addition to that, if you'd like to schedule a faculty workshop of some sort in the spring semester, we'd be happy to come and provide a demo specifically to your department heads, deans, excited faculty, and show how you can use this and let you test drive it as well. And then lastly, remember, a month from now, we do have National Study Abroad Day. So Study Abroad Association, we will be hosting our Global Learning Fest. It's something that we do each spring in addition to the activities around IEW and International Education Week. So we'll have different live sessions, live streaming sessions from professionals in the field from around the world, taking you on live streaming site visits of really unique locations. So I want to thank everybody again for joining us today, and it's been a pleasure, and thank you for allowing us to do what we are passionate about, and we really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all of our great guests today as well. Dominica, Jean, and Katie, we appreciate you. Thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Have a great rest of your day.
Yes.